Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching Newsnight on DD India, your primetime destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to see you again. Right, on the show tonight, an exclusive conversation with Dr. G. Satish Reddy, who heads the premier Indian defense R&D organization called the DRDO, which stands for Defense Research and Development Organization. Now, the DRDO develops cutting-edge defense technologies. It promotes self-reliance in critical defense technologies and systems, all this while equipping the Indian Armed Forces with state-of-the-art weapon systems and equipment, like, for instance, the fourth-generation light combat aircraft Tejas. But there is more to DRDO than just the Tejas. The DRDO has quickly diversified its talent to develop technologies needed to fight COVID-19. Now, nearly 50 technologies have been developed and about 75 products have been transferred to about 100 industries. All that and much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines first. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviews public health response to COVID-19, studies the situation in the states and districts, reviews availability of medicine, says there is a need to sensitize states that the speed of vaccination doses does not come down. PM also speaks to Chief Ministers of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and Jharkhand about COVID-related situation in their states. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh writes a blog on his ministry's response to COVID surge, says the armed forces have joined the scientific community and civil administration to fight against an invisible enemy in the deadly coronavirus. Army sets up hospitals across the country. Indian Railways, the Air Force and Navy continue to ferry oxygen. Trains deliver 161 tankers containing 2,511 metric tons of oxygen. Naval ships bring oxygen from foreign shores. The DRDO sets up 2 oxygen plants in Delhi. Kerala imposes a total lockdown from 8th to 16th May. Curfew in Himachal Pradesh till the 15th. Madhya Pradesh extends curfew till 15th of May. Positivity rate falls in Delhi and Madhya Pradesh. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal thanks the central government for sharing 700 metric tons of oxygen. Indian Railways suspends 28 train services. The Shatabdi, Duronto and Rajdhani won't run from 9th May till further orders. Decision taken in view of rising COVID-19 cases and a dip in passenger volumes. Health Ministry dismisses media reports as incorrect, says there are no oxygen concentrators pending with the customs for clearance. All concentrators have been delivered. Customs authorities clearing all consignments immediately. Union Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan's convoy attacked in West Midnapur allegedly by Trinamool party workers. Ministry of Home Affairs seeks a report from West Bengal governor on law and order in the state, sends a 4-member team to take stock of the situation. And in some international news, Sputnik Light, the single-shot COVID vaccine of Sputnik V, gets registration in Russia with claimed efficacy of 80%, which is higher than many 2-shot vaccines. The vaccine manufacturer claims Sputnik Light will double vaccination rates and help to handle epidemic peaks. Right, let me dive straight into our cover story. Now, our focus, as has been the case now for many days now, is on India's fight against a deadly second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. On Thursday, PM Modi reviewed the situation in the country. He praised the role of the armed forces in the fight against COVID-19. He referred to a write-up by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh titled "Fighting the Invisible Enemy, MOD's Response on COVID-19 Surge." The PM said the armed forces have left no stone unturned to strengthen the fight against COVID-19. He also spoke to Chief Ministers of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and Jharkhand about the situation in their respective states. He also spoke to Lieutenant Governors of Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir about the situation in their respective areas as well.
The country's battle against the COVID-19 pandemic is underway. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a widespread review meeting of the COVID-19 situation in the country on Thursday, where he was given a detailed picture on the COVID outbreak in various states and districts. PM was informed about the 12 states which have more than 1 lakh active cases. PM was also apprised about the districts with high disease burden. PM was briefed about the ramping up of health infrastructure by the states. Prime Minister Narendra Modi directed that states should be given help and guidance about leading indicators to ramp up healthcare infrastructure. The need to ensure quick and holistic containment measures also discussed. PM noted that an advisory was sent to the states to identify districts of concern where case positivity is 10% or more and bed occupancy is more than 60% on either oxygen-supported or ICU beds. PM also reviewed the availability of medicines. PM was briefed about the rapid augmenting of production of medicines including remdesivir. PM reviewed the progress on vaccination and the roadmap for scaling up production on vaccines in the next few months. PM was informed that around 17.7 crore vaccines have been supplied to the states. PM also reviewed the state-wise trends on vaccine wastage. PM spoke about the need to sensitize states that the speed of vaccination doesn't come down. Citizens should be facilitated for vaccination despite lockdowns, and healthcare workers involved in vaccination must not be diverted for other duties. While Defence Minister Rajnath Singh wrote a blog on the work done by his ministry in the battle against the COVID-19 pandemic, he said, "The surge of COVID-19 cases during the last 2 to 3 weeks has resulted in once-in-a-century crisis." He said, "Sensing the emergency situation, the whole government machinery immediately swung into action by mobilizing all possible resources." He further said that armed forces have pitched in this battle against an invisible yet deadly enemy. Indian Army, Air Force, Navy and other organizations of the Ministry of Defence and others are engaged to help mitigate the sufferings of the people. Indian Air Force transporting aircraft and Indian Navy ships providing logistic support to facilitate the supply of oxygen from friendly foreign countries and within the country, and setting up of new oxygen plants are some of the ongoing efforts of the Ministry of Defence. Armed forces to extend all possible assistance to the civil administration to tide over the crisis. Emergency financial powers granted to the armed forces. All wings of armed forces are setting up hospitals and camps as requested by states. Nearly 750 beds in various military hospitals have been set aside for civilians. Armed Forces Medical Services also dedicated 19 hospitals, over 4,000 beds and 585 ICU units across the country. Base Hospital in Delhi has been converted into a COVID hospital with the capacity being increased from around 400 to 1,000 beds. DRDO has set up a 500-bed COVID-19 facility each in New Delhi and Lucknow, a 900-bed hospital in Ahmedabad, and converted the ESIC hospital in Patna to a COVID hospital with 500 beds. Work is in full swing to set up COVID hospitals at Muzaffarpur and Varanasi. DRDO is also offering technical support to state governments in setting up temporary COVID hospitals. Indian Army has mobilized its resources to assist the civil administration to tide over the current COVID-19 situation in the country. To augment the supply of medical oxygen, Indian Air Force is carrying out sorties from within India and abroad. Indian Air Force transport aircraft carried out 50 sorties, airlifting 61 oxygen containers of 1,142 metric tons capacity from abroad. Within the country, it carried out 344 sorties, airlifting 230 containers of 4,527 metric ton capacity till 5th of May 2021. Indian Navy has deployed its ships to augment the mission for meeting the oxygen requirements. Various defense public sector undertakings, including Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and Ordnance Factory Board, are providing COVID care services, including oxygen beds at their facilities in several places across the country in coordination with different state governments. Rajnath Singh also said that the AFMS has deployed additional doctors, including specialists, super specialists and paramedics at various hospitals. He said that to further strengthen the workforce of health professionals, those who have recently retired from AFMS have been redeployed. Besides, the Indian Army has repaired 2 civil oxygen plants at Agra to facilitate the resumption of supply of up to 1,800 cylinders per day. DRDO initiated fabrication of 500 medical oxygen plants under PM CARES Fund. 2 such plants have been established in AIIMS and RML hospitals in New Delhi.
एक हफ्ते के अंदर में हमने एक ऑक्सीजन प्लांट लगवा लिया, डीआरडीओ ने हमें प्लांट दिया और बाकी सब मिल करके, तो ये जो ऑक्सीजन प्लांट है हमारा, ये 960 लीटर पर मिनट ऑक्सीजन जनरेट करेगा। हमारे पास पहले से ऑक्सीजन है, तो अगर उसमें हम ये ऐड कर देंगे, जो ऐड हमने कर दिया है ऑलरेडी, तो हमारा जो ऑक्सीजन का बफर है, हमारा जो ऑक्सीजन का स्टॉक है, हमारा जो ऑक्सीजन की यूज करने की कैपेसिटी है, ये बढ़ गई। अब ये भी एक अपने आप में एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण कदम है।
Oil and gas public sector companies are working earnestly to meet the nation's liquid medical oxygen requirements. They are setting up nearly 100 pressure swing absorption medical oxygen generation plants in public health facilities across the country. The hospitals in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Karnataka, Goa, Kerala, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh and Delhi will be covered under the initiative. The entire expenditure for these plants will be borne by the companies from their CSR fund. Besides, Indian Railways is continuing its journey of bringing relief by delivering liquid medical oxygen to various states across the country. So far, Indian Railways has delivered 2,511 metric tons approximately of LMO in 161 tankers to various states across the country. 40 oxygen expresses have already completed their journey so far. To sum up, the whole country stands united in the fight against the COVID surge in the pandemic through manifestation of an indomitable spirit. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, time now for our In Focus segment in which we are discussing about COVID-19, Indian Armed Forces walk the extra mile. And joining me is a very special guest, Dr. G. Satish Reddy, Secretary, Department of Defense R&D and Chairperson of the Defense Research and Development Organization. Dr. Reddy, welcome to Newsnight. Now, I was going to the DRDO website. I was pleasantly surprised to see the number of technologies and products developed by DRDO of late, including ventilators, automated decontamination of masks, AI-based COVID-19 detector, crowd temperature monitoring system, and so on and so forth, including most recently oxygen plants for 2 hospitals in Delhi as well. Help our viewers understand how do these technologies come about and what can DRDO do going forward as well to make India self-reliant and self-sufficient at the same time to meet the challenge of COVID-19.
Thank you. DRDO scientists have worked on many technologies which required to fight against the COVID.
Right.
Last time when the first pandemic has erupted in the month of March, April, scientists have come out with many technologies which they have actually tweaked the technologies which they have been working on for the defense related technologies. So made a number of masks, types of masks, they made sanitizers, they make PPE kits, varieties of PPE kits, and then of course ventilators, UV sanitizers, then many other related technologies which are required for COVID related things, which about totally 75 products have come which have been transferred to more than about 100 industries and which have been marketed in the country and outside this country also. And last year, we have established a hospital in Delhi in a record time of 10 days, a 1,000-bedded hospital. And then again, the government has thought that there should be a 500-bedded ICU hospital in the Delhi, which has been established again. And then we also established another hospital in Ahmedabad and Lucknow, which are operational now, and some more are being taken up. But most importantly, as you asked, is the oxygen. Today, the necessity of oxygen for all the COVID patients has gone up very high.
Right.
And so there is a need to have oxygen at each and every hospital. So the technology what we have developed for Tejas fighter aircraft as an onboard oxygen generation system, when the fighter aircraft goes into higher altitudes, the oxygen will be very less there, and so we need to generate oxygen for the pilots, which is called onboard oxygen generation system.
Okay.
The technology has been transformed to make it available in large quantities for the higher altitude areas like Tawang and Leh, and we have established plants there to produce oxygen in large quantities. The same technology through industry now being offered for various hospitals, which the first two through PM CARES funds have been commissioned at All India Institute of Medical Sciences and RML at Delhi. They are fully operational and connected to these two hospitals now. And we have roped in a number of industries, the Tatas, the L&T and the Bharat Atmos Limited to produce 500 such plants in a span of 3 months. The industries are working very hard along with our original industry partner Trident Pneumatic, and I'm sure that we'll be able to produce this 500 in the coming 3 months.
Indeed, as you mentioned, Dr. Reddy, and correctly, that oxygen supplies are urgently needed in large parts of the country, and two such plants to begin with have been set up in Delhi, and such plants, similar plants will be set up across the country as well going forward. Talk a bit about also the fact that DRDO is transferring technology, as you mentioned, to the private industry. There is an DRDO industry interface working at the same time, and also besides oxygen plants, the number of beds are also being increased in many hospitals in northern India in particular, and technological support to state governments so that they become able to meet the contingencies going forward as well.
Correct. As you said rightly, number of places the hospitals have been established, and like in Delhi, the 500 beds are being made to 1,000 beds now, and many other places like Varanasi and in Rishikesh, then in Haldwani, in Jammu and other places also hospitals are being established. And we are also supporting the state government like in Haryana, the Panipat, and also in Madhya Pradesh, the Bina, giving technical hand-holding to come up with the hospitals there.
Indeed. And because Dr. Reddy, DD India is also watched in large parts of Indo-Pacific region and the Americas as well, would you like to talk a bit about the transfer of technology or patenting of similar products and technologies going forward? Because there is a corpus, a wealth of experience and information with DRDO. Can that be put to better use or shared with other countries going forward as well?
Yeah, we have been cooperating with various countries, and in fact, firstly, the IP, what we have in large numbers, the IPRs, they have been made open to the Indian industry, and also whichever the countries which are friendly with us, with the MEA clearance, we are cooperating with those countries in giving many things part of the cooperation.
And also, is patenting on the anvil, on the cards, Dr. Reddy? Any of these products and technologies?
Many of the technologies and products which you are bringing out, all are being patented, and the number of patents what we have is more than about 1,800 now, which actually we have made it open to the Indian industry so that they can come out with many technologies and many products which they can sell all over the world.
I'm also told, Dr. Reddy, that besides these cutting-edge technologies or products, DRDO is also giving a major fillip to basic essential items such as PPE kits or face masks or face shields, including technology to decontaminate them on a larger scale. Have they been actually put to use on the ground as we speak during the second wave of this pandemic? And also, given the fact that a third wave could be inevitable, is DRDO geared up to meet any eventuality going forward as well on a much bigger scale?
Firstly, as you said, all the technologies for the PPEs, the masks, the sanitizers, the UV blasters, and many other things have been transferred the technologies to the industry last year itself. So all those industries now again got geared up in this second wave also, and they are producing them. That's how we are now seeing in the country. There is no shortage of any masks or PPEs at all here. And so their industries are on their own, they are able to produce many things. At the same time, the DRDO scientists are always are on watch, and then trying to see that what the technical skills what they have and the knowledge what they have to put in to fight the new wave also. That's how the technologies, like what I said, is the PSAs, the oxygenation plants, or the SpO2 based oxygen supply system to a human being, automatic, based on the sensing of the values of the SpO2. That also has been given to industry, which is going to come as a small cylinder for all the people at home, or COVID centers, or COVID care centers and other places, so that number of beds need not be fully occupied and doctors are not pressurized too much. So that system is also coming out, and lot many things. In fact, DRDO scientists in their laboratories, they have unearthed all the cylinders which are there, which are used for different purposes, and as per the PESA regulations, they have all refurbished them, and then they are supplying all over the country. So many activities like that have been taken up.
Indeed. Right, on that note, Dr. Reddy, may I thank you for sharing your insights with us and our viewers in India and around the world, and may I wish you and your team at DRDO all the very best in your future endeavors. Appreciate it for your time. Thank you.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, and continuing our discussion with a new guest joining us this moment is Lieutenant General Atta Hasnain, a former General Officer commanding of the 15th Corps of the Indian Army. Currently, he is a member of the National Disaster Management Authority. General Hasnain, welcome to News Night. Now, before I ask you a pointed question about the armed forces, may I, for the benefit of viewers, recall what the Defense Minister said in his blog earlier today. He said, and I'm quoting him here, the armed forces and various establishments of MOD are not just providing support to civil administration or state governments in fighting the current situation, but are also playing a pivotal role in conducting a vaccination drive launched by the government across the country. All the efforts and initiatives by the armed forces and various organizations of MOD, some of which are enumerated above, are being done without compromising the objective of defending the nation from any external threat, unquote. Your views, General Hasnain, on the role of the armed forces in war and peace, in particular the second wave of the COVID pandemic.
Thank you for that very fine question, and Jai Hind to all your listeners
Welcome,
and watchers. May I start by saying that the common understanding and perception is that the armed forces are there for the defense of the country, to provide security to the country. Now, most people think that security means the security of the borders. That's not necessary. The modern meaning of security, in fact, has been there for very long, is comprehensive security. The security of people, security of human beings. This is a very large aspect of human security. And the armed forces also have a secondary role, therefore, to play in internal security and in aspects such as human security. Why are the armed forces being actually brought into this? You see, whatever you may do, the situation is such which will tend to actually overwhelm all the resources which are deployable, all the elements of the power of the government of India which can be deployed. The situation is just too big in volume. The armed forces are an element which are, first of all, trained in leadership, resource management, fighting or carrying out operations. They are organized to do logistics. So almost everything which is involved in the fighting of a pandemic, the armed forces are trained to do that for war. And a pandemic is almost akin to war. So therefore, bringing the armed forces into this domain to fight the pandemic is but a natural thing, number one.
Right.
How much of the resources is optimum to be employed or deployed without compromising national security? You can see that the armed forces haven't moved any of their resources from the borders. The Indian Air Force has used this transport fleet extensively to bring in 50 sorties, to bring in a lot of oxygen-related equipment from abroad. A number of naval ships have been employed to go into the Middle East and Southeast Asia to bring in a fair amount of equipment. None of this is compromising the security of India in any way. If I would say, it is actually enhancing the security of India, because it is enhancing the human security of the public at this time when it is most required.
Indeed. General Hasnain, you have the benefit of having served in the Indian Army and also now being a member of the NDMA. Now, from your vantage, is there any synergy between the armed forces and the NDMA in tackling such crises? Number one. And number two, the army has a dual role here. Not only has it to take care of the welfare of its own soldiers and their families, now helping the civil administrations across the length and breadth of the country. And that's a humongous task, a Herculean task, calls for coordination, planning, strategic deployments and so on and so forth. So this is a mammoth exercise, and the hallmark of the armed forces is discipline and execution, isn't it?
Absolutely. Let me answer the first part of your question very, very briefly. When the Disaster Management Act was enacted in December 2005, till then, the Army and the armed forces were considered the lead organizations as first responders, primarily as responders to them. In fact, almost everything of disaster management used to be based on the armed forces. Thereafter, the raising of the NDRF brought about a sea change. The Disaster Management Act came into being, the NDMA came into being, but despite that, the NDRF as first responders, and subsequently wherever the resources are much quiet enough.
I'm afraid we've lost that link.
NDRF does not have
Yeah, please carry on.
It doesn't have naval resources, for example. So everything comes from the armed forces in that particular case. I can assure you, in all meetings of the NDMA, we always have representatives of the Headquarters Integrated Defense Staff, the IDS, always present with us, and there's an element within the IDS which looks after disaster management separately. So there is a tremendous amount of coordination which continues to take place. On the second part of it, yes, it's a humongous effort. There's no doubt. I think since independence, we have never had an internal threat of this nature. The sheer volume of it is so large. And therefore, it is only natural that resources which are available, which can be brought to bear from the armed forces, are being brought to bear. And as I said in my earlier intervention, without compromising your national security on the borders, in the maritime zone, or in the air, anywhere. But the most important aspect here, I would say particularly, is the organizational aspect. The armed forces are known to look at a problem, analyze it, appreciate it, look at the various factors in it, come up with a strategy, evolve it into a plan, and then go about executing it. Now, that's the process which is being followed in this particular case also. You have seen that the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, has met the CDS and all of the three chiefs separately. They have all briefed him. I'm sure convinced him completely that almost everything that they've been tasked to do, they are performing. In fact, they are going beyond their tasks and carrying out the various duties.
Absolutely. On that note, General Hasnain, thank you once again for being with us on Newsnight. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, shifting focus to other stories we are tracking here on Newsnight tonight. The United Nations on Thursday held the annual memorial service to honor United Nations personnel who lost their lives in the line of duty in the year 2020. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres awarded Indian peacekeeper hero Yuvraj Singh posthumously at the memorial service. And they also paid tribute to Yuvraj Singh's peacekeeping work. India's permanent representative to the UN, T.S. Tirumurthy, took to Twitter to pay his tribute, and he wrote, I quote, "We salute his bravery and contribution while paying our emotional tribute and deepest condolences to his family." And the United Nations on Thursday honored a total of 336 UN personnel from around 82 countries who lost their lives last year in the line of duty. Moving on, the Health Ministry has said that an effective allocation of COVID materials received from overseas has led to resource augmentation on the ground. Also, customs clearances for oxygen concentrators received from overseas have been fast-tracked. Government of India continues to effectively allocate COVID-19 supplies received from the global community to states and UTs. More than 1,800 oxygen concentrators and cylinders and 9 generation plants and more than 2,400 ventilators and BPAP machines and more than 2.8 lakh remdesivir vials have been delivered so far. Meanwhile, India's vaccination campaign has recorded 162 million vaccine doses so far. and more than 1.9 million vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours alone. And this included over 230,000 people between the ages of 18 and 44.
The nation is battling COVID-19 pandemic like never before. Gripped by the second wave, India has seen an unprecedented rise in the cases in the past few weeks. The rising number of cases and fatalities have put immense pressure on the health infrastructure across the country, while the governments within the country are working tooth and nail to curb the rise. The international community has also extended its support. Following the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the world is one family, many countries have been providing equipment, raw materials and aid since 27th April. In fact, a great proportion of the material and equipment received so far have already been allocated to the states and union territories. Meanwhile, the Union Health Ministry on Thursday quashed several reports by the international media regarding the distribution of international aid. The Health Ministry in a tweet said, "Some global media reports have raised concerns regarding distribution of global aid being sent to India in its fight against COVID-19. However, the aid is being effectively and promptly allocated and dispatched to states and union territories by Government of India." The Union Health Ministry also denied some media reports that claimed that oxygen concentrators are pending at the customs warehouse for getting clearance from the customs authorities. The ministry has termed the reports to be totally incorrect, not based on facts and without any basis. According to the ministry, there is no pendency of oxygen concentrators with Indian customs. The Indian customs is swiftly clearing all consignments and there is no such figures of pendency existing across any port of import. The concentrators are being supplied to the places where they are required. The relief material has been dispatched to road and air too. The ministry in a statement said that the Indian customs is sensitive to the need for availability of COVID-related imports, including oxygen and oxygen-related equipment, and is working 24/7 to fast-track and clear the goods on arrival and lead to expeditious clearance within hours. In all, 3,000 oxygen concentrators have been received from various countries as global aid to support efforts of the Government of India and the states and union territories in their collective fight against the global pandemic. Of these, Mauritius has sent 200 oxygen concentrators, Russia has sent 20, United Kingdom has sent in 4 consignments of 95, 120, 280 and 174 oxygen concentrators respectively. Around 80 have been received from Romania, 700 from Ireland, 30 from Thailand, 1,000 from China, 151 from Uzbekistan. In addition, Taiwan has also sent 150 oxygen concentrators. Apart from that, the Indian Air Force has also been making all efforts to get the international aid to India. More oxygen cylinders and other equipment is being lifted from other countries. Meanwhile, Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar took to Twitter to condemn the fake reports regarding the distribution of supplies. He said, "Condemn the efforts to mislead, misinform and deliberately confuse the people with falsehood on the distribution of COVID-19 supplies received from the global community." Amid this, the global community is continuing its support to India. Many countries have provided medical equipment, medicines, oxygen concentrators and ventilators to India. The central government has put in place a well-organized system for effective distribution of medical and other relief and aid material. The Health Ministry has also set up a special cell under Additional Secretary for smooth allocation of the foreign relief materials, which is operational since 26th April. The cell comprises representatives from the Ministry of Education, Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Civil Aviation and other departments, besides representatives from HLL and Indian Red Cross Society. So far, nearly 40 lakh materials in 24 categories have been allocated in 86 institutes across the country. Meanwhile, Italy's ambassador to India, Vincenzo De Luca, on Thursday inaugurated an oxygen plant at Greater Noida's ITBP Referral Hospital. Oxygen plants will be able to supply oxygen to more than 100 beds at a time to COVID-19 patients admitted to the center.
This machine will provide oxygen to more than 100 patients at the same time. It will work here permanently as a sign of a friendship between Italy and India. We received aid from this hospital when our first tourists coming here in India were affected by COVID. We do not forget this.
Nevertheless, the government aims to provide assistance through various channels, measures and means in order to strengthen the states and union territories to fight the pandemic. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, there is a sliver of good news coming in from some parts of India. The positivity rate, that's the percentage of people testing positive for the virus, is declining in some states. Oxygen supplies are being augmented in hospitals across the country too. This even as some states opt for an extended lockdown or curfew to be the transmission of the virus. But experts warn there is no room for complacency. Take a look at COVID updates from around India in our next report.
All states are waging a mighty battle against the deadly coronavirus. Several states have imposed corona curfew or lockdown to break the chain of the fast-surging COVID-19 infections across the country. Strict compliance of COVID-appropriate behavior is being maintained, and that is why some states are witnessing a declining trend in new daily cases. National capital Delhi is now reporting a diminishing trend of infection. In the last 24 hours, Delhi recorded 19,133 new cases. During this period, the positivity rate was 24.29%. There has been a decrease in the positivity rate for the last 9 days. However, experts have warned of complacency. In the meantime, oxygen supply has also been streamlined in the state. Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has expressed gratitude towards the Union government for providing more than 700 metric tons of oxygen per day to Delhi.
दिल्ली को 700 टन ऑक्सीजन की ज़रूरत है। कल पहली बार केंद्र सरकार ने 730 टन ऑक्सीजन भेजी है। हम तहे दिल से दिल्ली की जनता की तरफ से उनका मुख्यमंत्री होने के नाते मैं केंद्र सरकार का बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ।
In the most populous state of Uttar Pradesh, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath held a review meeting with Team 9 constituted for the management of COVID-19 and issued necessary guidelines to them. There has been a decrease of more than 50,000 active cases in the state. COVID care centers are also being set up on a war footing in the state. Over 544 centers have been established in different areas.
उद्योगों में कोविड हेल्प डेस्क तो पूर्व से स्थापित थी। कोविड केयर सेंटर बनाए जा रहे हैं। लगभग 544 उद्योगों में कोविड केयर सेंटर बना दिए हैं। जो निर्माण संबंधी गतिविधियां हैं, बड़े प्रोजेक्ट हैं, हाईवेज, एक्सप्रेसवे और बड़े हाउसिंग प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, उनमें काम नहीं रुकना चाहिए। जो भी काम वहां कर रहे हैं उनके लिए उनके स्वास्थ्य जांच की समुचित व्यवस्था हो।
The state government has also taken serious action on hoarders and black marketeers of oxygen. So far, 117 people have been arrested in the state for committing the heinous crime of selling life-saving drugs, oxygen cylinders and medical devices illegally. 282 injections, 1,263 oxygen cylinders, 818 oximeters and more than 52 lakh rupees have also been recovered from the arrested people.
अब तक कुल 117 व्यक्तियों को गिरफ्तार करते हुए सभी जनपदों के पुलिस अधीक्षकों को यह स्पष्ट निर्देश दिए गए हैं कि ऐसे सभी अपराधियों पर जो कालाबाजारी करते हुए गिरफ्तार किए गए हैं उनके विरुद्ध नियमानुसार तथा परीक्षणों उपरांत NSA तथा गैंगस्टर कानून के तहत कठोरतम कार्रवाई सुनिश्चित की जाए।
The Madhya Pradesh government has imposed Janta curfew across the state till 15th of May to check the spread of the deadly virus. State Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has said that with the cooperation of all, active cases in the state are falling moderately.
21 अप्रैल तक मध्य प्रदेश का नंबर संक्रमित राज्यों में 7वां हुआ करता था, 6वां या 7वां। ये आपके सहयोग का परिणाम है कि हम आज 14वें नंबर पर हैं। एक्टिव केसेस में भी बड़े राज्यों में हम सबसे पीछे हैं। रिकवरी रेट लगातार बढ़ रहा है। पॉजिटिविटी रेट तो कल 18.23%, 18.23% हो गया।
Madhya Pradesh Home Minister Narottam Mishra said that there is no shortage of oxygen in the state. The state has started setting up oxygen plants in all 54 districts. Haryana also imposed strict lockdown in the state. The state also tightened the noose around black marketeers and fixed the rates of medicines and created a monitoring helpline number 1800-180-1314. The DGP of the state will monitor the matter.
कोई भी महंगे दामों पर इस आपदा के समय में मुनाफाखोरी करने की कोशिश करेगा। हमने एक हेल्पलाइन बना दी जो खुद डीजीपी उसकी निगरानी कर रहे हैं। उस नंबर पर कोई भी फोन करके बता सकता है, उसकी पहचान गुप्त रखी जाएगी और हम कार्रवाई करेंगे।
Partial lockdown has been clamped in West Bengal as well. Newly sworn in Chief Minister for the third time, Mamata Banerjee asked officials to ensure that 40% of the beds in all hospitals be reserved for COVID-19 patients.
সমস্ত নার্সিংহোম আর হাসপাতালে 40% বেড বাড়ানোর বিশেষ অনুমতি দেওয়া হচ্ছে কোভিড পরিস্থিতি মোকাবিলায়। এতে প্রাইভেট হসপিটালগুলোতে ইমিডিয়েট 2000 বেড বাড়তে পারে।
The government of Himachal Pradesh has also announced imposition of corona curfew in the state from 16th May 6 am to 17th May 6 am.
मेरा आप सबसे विनम्र निवेदन है कि कोविड के संकट से सभी प्रदेशवासियों को बचाने के लिए हमने कोरोना कर्फ्यू लागू किया है। आप उसमें हमें अपना पूरा सहयोग दें, नियमों का उसमें पालन करें और निश्चित रूप से मैं इस बात को कह सकता हूं, यही एकमात्र रास्ता है।
Meanwhile, lockdown will be imposed in Kerala from 6 am on 8th of May till 16th of May in view of the increasing cases of corona. On the other hand, directives have been issued to treat COVID patients in Goa under the state's insurance scheme, Deen Dayal Health Service Scheme. Vaccination drive in the country is also picking its pace. People in the age group of 18 to 44 years in Delhi and Mumbai received their jabs. If we talk of the total vaccination figures, the Government of India has so far provided approximately 17.15 crore doses to the states and union territories. Of this, as per the data available till 8 am on Thursday, the total consumption including wastage stands at 16 crore 25 lakh 10,905. The states and UTs will get more than 28 lakh doses within the next 3 days. Definitely, all-round efforts are going on to defeat this virus on a war footing. Now, all we have to do is follow the mantra of maintaining COVID-appropriate behavior at all times, plus getting oneself vaccinated as soon as possible. Bureau Report, DD India.
A Supreme Court bench headed by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud resumed hearing the matter regarding the supply of oxygen by the centre to various hospitals in Delhi on Thursday. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta told the Supreme Court that a significant stock of oxygen is there in Delhi hospitals at present, and the question is not of oxygen shortage but a systemic failure in the supply system. Hence, an oxygen audit of Delhi becomes essential. The Solicitor General informed the top court that states like Rajasthan, Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh are also demanding more oxygen to cater to their hospital demands. The centre submitted a detailed plan to the Supreme Court on procurement and supply of oxygen to various states. The top court advised the centre to rethink on the formula being devised for the allocation of oxygen to the states. The court said that people being treated at home also require oxygen. At present, the formula does not include COVID care centres or ambulances. The Supreme Court further cautioned the centre that since we have to face the third wave of the pandemic, we have to make sure that oxygen reaches not only the states but also hospitals of the states. The apex court said that children can also be affected in the third wave, so they also need to be included in the ongoing vaccination drive. Meanwhile, Supreme Court has termed Madras High Court's observations against the Election Commission as harsh and inappropriate. The apex court said there is a need for judges of superior courts to exercise restraint and not make off-the-cuff remarks in court proceedings. A bench headed by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud found that the High Court was faced with a situation of rising cases of COVID-19 and was duty-bound to protect its citizens. But according to Supreme Court, the High Court did not attribute culpability for the spread of COVID-19 to the poll body. Supreme Court added that oral remarks are not part of the order and hence there is no question of expungement. However, the court also declined a plea made by the EC to restrain media from reporting oral remarks made by the Madras High Court. The Apex Court said media coverage of court hearings is part of freedom of press and it has bearing on citizens' right to information and also on the accountability of the judiciary. Shifting focus to the east now, no end to post-poll violence in West Bengal. A minister's convoy is attacked in West Midnapur. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Home Affairs has sought a report from West Bengal governor on the situation in the state. Now, the ministry has dispatched a 4-member team to take stock of the situation in the state.
Allegations and counter-allegations over post-poll violence in West Bengal continues unabated. After attacks on BJP workers and vandalizing party offices, the convoy of Union Minister V. Muralidharan was allegedly attacked by locals in Panchkudi area of West Midnapur district on Thursday. Muralidharan was in West Bengal to take stock of the post-poll violence that erupted after the assembly election results were declared on 2nd May. Stones and sticks were thrown at the Union Minister's car. Muralidharan claimed that the attack was orchestrated by TMC goons. He also shared a video on his Twitter handle. Sharing the video, Muralidharan wrote, "TMC goons attacked my convoy in West Midnapur. Broken windows, attacked personal staff, cutting short my trip." Condemning the attack, BJP said, if union ministers can be attacked, then who is safe in West Bengal? In a tweet, BJP National President JP Nadda said, "The attack on Union Minister V. Muralidharan's convoy by TMC workers in West Midnapur district in West Bengal is condemnable. The law and order situation in West Bengal has completely collapsed. If a union minister can be attacked, then what would be the condition of common man? TMC-sponsored violence is on the peak across West Bengal after the state assembly election results have been declared. Murderous attacks on BJP workers, rapes happening in West Bengal, and people in thousands are fleeing to save lives." Terming the attack on Union Minister V. Muralidharan's convoy a conspiracy, BJP demanded strict action.
पश्चिम बंगाल में चुनाव के बाद जिस तरह से हिंसा चल रही है, 14 से ज़्यादा बीजेपी कार्यकर्ताओं की हत्या हुई है, लाखों लोगों को घर छोड़ना पड़ा क्योंकि घरों पर हमले किए गए हैं, आगजनी की है। ये तो लोकतंत्र नहीं है। और आज जिस तरह से केंद्रीय मंत्री हमारे साथी मुरलीधरन जी पर हमला हुआ है, हम इसकी भर्त्सना करते हैं और इस पर निश्चित रूप से जिन पुलिस अधिकारी और जिनके उपस्थिति में इस तरह का हमला हुआ है, उस पर भी कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए।
Meanwhile, a 4-member team of the Home Ministry arrived in West Bengal on Thursday to take stock of the post-election violence in the state. The team has been asked to submit a detailed report within 48 hours. A 10-member BJP delegation led by West Bengal BJP President Dilip Ghosh on Thursday met the team from the Home Ministry at the BSF office in Kolkata.
विधानसभा में इस प्रकार मारकाट खून खराबा हुआ है, 21 खून हुआ है, उसके बारे में हमारी पास जो इन्फॉर्मेशन थी हमको बताया और जाकर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में रूरल में लोगों से मिल करके वास्तव परिस्थिति देखने के लिए हमने उनको निवेदन किया, जबकि चीफ सेक्रेटरी जाने के लिए मना किया है। आप लोग जानते हैं हर बार कोई ना कोई सेंट्रल टीम आता है तो ये लोग रोकते हैं।
However, Trinamool Congress denied allegations of violence. On the other hand, West Bengal Chief Minister announced 2 lakh rupees relief to the families of those killed in post-poll violence.
The families of those killed in post-poll violence will be given relief of 2 lakh rupees by the state government. There will be no discrimination in distributing relief.
मैं तो ये इनकार करते हैं कि बंगाल में कोई वायलेंस नहीं है। 10 करोड़ आदमी हैं, एक दो छोटा मोटा झगड़ा हो सकता है और वो भी बीजेपी का इंटरनल झगड़ा है, वो तृणमूल का ऊपर आरोप लगाने के लिए कर रहे हैं।
Earlier this week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called up West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar and expressed concern over the reports of post-poll violence in the state. The Ministry of Home Affairs has also sought a detailed report from the West Bengal government. Governor Jagdeep Dhankar in a tweet said, "Post-poll violence and vandalism continues unabated in West Bengal." He said he has not received the report he sought 2 days ago. The reports of incidents of post-poll violence have been arriving since the West Bengal Assembly election results were declared on 2nd May. The BJP has alleged that most of its workers have been killed or beaten up. Houses and party offices have been vandalized. With inputs from Shailendra Mishra, Bureau Report, DD India.
The University Grants Commission on Thursday issued an important directive to all universities in the country. It advised universities not to conduct offline exams in the month of May as the country is battling a second wave of the coronavirus. But the Commission has left it to universities to decide on the conduct of online exams after suitably addressing local conditions and ensuring that they are prepared in all respects. Time now for all the COVID news from around the world. Take a look.
The world continues to battle coronavirus. Over 15 crore 58 lakh 86,000 people have been infected by COVID-19. The deadly virus has claimed lives of over 32 lakh 57,000 people. As many as 13 crore 33 lakh 49,000 people have recovered from the COVID-19. Russia's Sputnik V has said it has introduced Sputnik Light, which is a one-shot COVID-19 vaccine with 80% efficacy, higher than many two-shot vaccines. The vaccine manufacturer claims that Sputnik Light will double vaccination rates and help to handle epidemic peaks. Top American lawmaker Sheila Jackson Lee has proposed sending a mercy ship to India to help the country deal with the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. The congresswoman said the situation in India is so dire that the US must organize and collaborate to provide the aid India needs. After the United Memorial Medical Center in Houston announced sending COVID-19 assistance to India. In France, younger people are being given COVID jabs since the government opened vaccination to all adults with comorbidities since 1st of May. At least 1 crore 67 lakh 63,000 French people had received at least one dose on Wednesday, which represents 31.9% of the adult population. Australia's most populous state, Sydney, on Thursday reintroduced social distancing restrictions and made masks mandatory indoors ahead of Mother's Day this weekend. The restrictions have been imposed after the detection of new locally transmitted COVID-19 cases. Household gatherings will be limited to 20 guests and visitors to aged care centres will be limited to 2. New Zealand has halted quarantine-free travel to Australia's state of New South Wales while it investigates the source of infection of 2 COVID-19 cases detected in Sydney. Chris Hipkins, the Minister for COVID-19 Response, said the government would continue monitoring the situation in Australia and act accordingly. The cases in the southeastern state were announced in the last 2 days. US President Joe Biden on Wednesday threw his support behind waiving intellectual property rights for COVID-19 vaccines, bowing to mounting pressure from Democratic lawmakers and more than 100 other countries, but angering pharmaceutical companies. Biden voiced his support for a waiver, followed swiftly by a statement from his top trade negotiator, Catherine Tai, who backed negotiations at the World Trade Organization. Indonesia has introduced a scheduled internal travel ban on Thursday in a bid to curb coronavirus infections at a time when millions would normally travel home to mark the end of the Islamic fasting month. Police were deployed across the capital Jakarta to check documents and prevent travelers without special permits from leaving the city. The travel ban was announced last month and will last from 6th to 17th May during the national Eid al-Fitr celebrations.
And it's a wrap, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Don't forget, wear a mask, wash your hands, and always practice social distancing. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.